First up, we have a public hearing. It's a proposed camping ordinance amendment and informational report on homelessness, including sanctioned camping program, homeless program contracts, and appropriation of funds. I know there's great interest. We have lots of content. So I shall turn it over to City Manager Christina Lilovich to kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. I'm just going to make a few opening remarks and then turn the balance of the presentation over to the team here. I first wanted to recognize a couple of guests we have in the audience. We have the new County Executive, Derek Johnson, over this way from the County of Marin, who's going to be here to say a few words about the partnership between the city and the county at the end of the staff presentation. I also wanted to acknowledge Scott Embledge from Moscone Law, right in the front row. And Scott's going to be saying a few words about some of the legal framework to help clarify some of the issues around grants pass later on in the staff presentation. I also wanted to pause and appreciate this team for what they have been doing over this last year. All the way up until today, a massive operation happened along the Mahone Creek Path, which you'll see in the presentation, but this is a multi-departmental team, the police department, public works, city manager's office, the legal team, and more. And it's really probably touches every single department in the city. And I'm very proud and grateful for the team that we have here that's out there every day with a lot of heart and a lot of compassion and a lot of energy to try to address all these impacts in our community. So just to set the stage for the staff's presentation, since the last time we gave an update to the community and to the council, there's been some significant changes in the federal and state and local landscape. So just to mention a few, the grants past Supreme Court decision, it does provide an expanded ability to prohibit camping based on time, place, and manner. It only addressed the cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment. The lawsuit that the city has been under for the last year, which is recently dismissed, but we've been in a legal challenge for the last year, was also based on a legal argument around our former camping ordinance being constituting a state-created danger, which is a different legal framework. And that's why we've got Scott here, the attorney, who's going to go into a little bit more detail about that nuanced distinction and how grants pass impacts San Rafael maybe differently than other jurisdictions. Until a couple of weeks ago, like I said, we've had a temporary restraining order for the last 12 months, which meant the city was not legally permitted to enforce its existing camping ordinance that was passed last summer. The dismissal of the lawsuit does now mean that we can implement the camping ordinance that exists that the council passed this past April of 2024, which includes a legal framework for setbacks similar to how we do in our zoning code. So you'll hear more about that from the staff. Governor Newsom's executive order, just to clarify, his state order only applies to encampments that are on state-owned property. So his order was to direct state agencies to address those encampments. I want to emphasize that everything that Governor Newsom has directed the state agencies to do are activities that the city has been doing to the greatest extent that we can, given the legal constraints. And you'll hear more about those enforcement activities as the staff will give you a kind of a year in review of where we've been and what we have been able to accomplish. How other jurisdictions respond to the changes in the legal landscape obviously impact us here in San Rafael. So we are keeping a very close eye on what other jurisdictions are doing. Just to call out in particular, in San Francisco, they recently started a program called Homeward Bound, where they will provide transportation to another jurisdiction. However, the program requires that their staff make contact with a family member, an employer, or a friend who's willing to receive and support that individual, and they're asking for that in writing. I also wanted to just make note that we have a similar program here in Marin called Return to Residence, and local service providers have shared that they send approximately 10 people out of the county per year in a similar program where there's someone to receive them and provide support, approximately 100 over the last 10 years. We will continue to monitor what's happening in other jurisdictions. And then I briefly, while I have the floor, I wanted to thank Derek and acknowledge that he's, I think 90 days in, he told me today. So he's new to the county. And one of the first things that he and I did was we got together and talked about how important it would be for our respective teams who are leading the charge in both of the city and the county to get together and really formulate this partnership founded in this great state grant that we were able to jointly apply for and receive the $6 million ERF3 grant. And so we are working really closely in lockstep to make sure we're addressing this as a regional issue, and appreciate Derek being here. So at that, I'll turn it over to the team.
There we go. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Kate and members of City Council. John Stefanski, Assistant City Manager. I'm here tonight with Mel Burnett, our Housing and Homelessness Analyst. And really excited to be here because this is a opportunity for us as staff to come and present a comprehensive update on the city's approach to homelessness. So tonight's presentation, we have a number of things that we're going to cover. And we'll be providing a brief background and some context setting, as well as an overview of the city's approach and response to homelessness to date. For the council tonight, there are two recommended actions. The first is consideration of amendments to the city's camping ordinance. And then the second is consideration of contracts the city will need to enter into for the development and operation of the planned sanctioned camping area and for providing homelessness related services more generally in the city. So by way of background, as of the most recent point in time count in Marin County 2024, there are 1,090 individuals experiencing homelessness in the county. Of these individuals, 788 were unsheltered at the time of the count, and 217 were chronically homeless. Now, I'll add that this represents a 2.77% decrease from the 2022 point in time count. But for San Rafael, the 2024 numbers are not yet available. So based off of the 2022 count, we estimate around 348 individuals experiencing homelessness in the city. But to supplement this work, the city did a survey last year of individuals who were living along the Mahone Creek Path and found that 90% of the people who were living there had done so for over a year, and that 2/3 of those people had lived in San Rafael for over a decade. Now, the county has had a lot of great success in recent years in housing individuals experiencing homelessness. Since 2017, they have been able to house 737 chronically homeless individuals, and 94% of those folks remain housed to this day. However, as we saw on the previous slide, I think particularly relevant for the discussion this evening, is that there's still much more work to be done, as we only have 291 shelter beds available in the county for over 1,000 individuals. So turning our attention to San Rafael, we're going to spend some time on this slide, not a year, but we'll be here for a little bit. The city has been effectively blocked from enforcing our camping on public property regulations since August of last year. So we've been at this now for over a year, really. And as you'll recall, it was this council who in 2023 had made amendments to the city's camping ordinance to comply with the then governing Martin v. Boise decision. And 3 days before that ordinance was to take effect, the city was sued in federal court based off of the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as claims that there was a state-created danger. The court entered a temporary restraining order and then later a preliminary injunction that effectively blocked the city's ability to enforce these camping regulations. From December to February of last year and then this year, the city attempted in good faith to implement the direction of the court, which at the time it sought to have the city work with the California Homeless Union and individuals and members along the Mahone Creek Path area encampment to designate set campsites for individuals and establish voluntary compliance with the direction of the court. However, this work was ultimately abandoned because we were not able to achieve the level of cooperation that was needed in order for that approach to be effective. So shortly thereafter, the city refocused its attention towards amending the camping ordinance to address the concerns of the court and to create a regulatory framework that we could ultimately use to mitigate the impacts of encampments. And the city council passed this updated ordinance in April of this year. Following this, the city filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, and earlier this month, the court granted this motion, allowing the city to proceed with implementing the amended camping ordinance. And I'll have more to share on that implementation here shortly. However, I will note that during the time of the preliminary injunction, the city worked to identify other regulatory avenues to address the public health and safety concerns related to encampments in the city. As you may recall, in October and November of last year, we enforced the fire code to abate fire risks associated with the proliferation of wooden structures and wooden pallets in encampments in the city. And then in December of last year, the city manager issued an order prohibited camping on Lindaro Street. And so as you'll see on the slide here, we have a before picture of Lindaro Street and then a picture of Lindaro Street shortly after that order went into effect. And I'll add that for most of this summer, the city has been pursuing enforcement efforts aimed at addressing more illegally constructed structures within our city parks and public rights of way. To date, the city has issued 49 notices, resulting in 42 sites now complying with the city's regulations, and 7 are currently undergoing an administrative appeals process where they actually have an administrative hearing scheduled for tomorrow. I will note as a statistic of this work that the city has removed over 31 tons of debris as a result of bringing these structures down. And it's important to note that when the city undertakes this work, we provide individuals with replacement tents and other items, and also provide an option for individuals to store their public property for up to 90 days. So these next couple slides just show some before and after pictures of the city's work in addressing illegal structures and attempting to enforce on our camping ordinance. And so as you can see, here are pictures in front of Marin Roofing along Francisco Boulevard West. Some additional pictures outside there. Here are some pictures along Anderson Drive, some before and afters. And then the Mahone Creek Path as well. So as Christine touched on in her opening remarks, there have been a number of recent legal actions that have changed the landscape by which the city may regulate and address homelessness within the city. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Embledge, who's one of our attorneys who help us with this, and he's going to speak to the grants pass ruling and its impacts on us here in San Rafael. Scott.
Thank you, John. Good evening, council members. So in the grants pass ruling, I think there's been sort of a public perception that, well, the Supreme Court ruled that cities can do whatever they want now, and so there shouldn't be any more homeless people on the streets. Well, that's a gross overstatement of that ruling. The ruling addressed a narrow but substantial issue, but one issue, and that was the Eighth Amendment, whether it violates the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution to forbid people from camping or sleeping on streets unless a city provides sufficient space indoors for them to go to. The Supreme Court reversed the Ninth Circuit's decision that had established that Eighth Amendment doctrine. So it essentially removed one legal argument from the unhoused that are bringing lawsuits to try to establish their rights to be in certain places on public property. But that's just one argument. There are many arguments that have been raised in litigation, including litigation against the city of San Rafael. As the city manager mentioned, the injunction that has been tying the hands of the city of San Rafael for a year was not based on the Eighth Amendment. It was based on other legal theories. And because this body amended its ordinance to try to comply with that injunction, we were able to get out of that injunction earlier, just a few weeks ago. But those other legal theories remain. And I guess the cautionary note is the concept that it is now free for cities to take whatever actions a city wants regarding the unhoused population. From a legal perspective, apart from the practical concerns or the humane concerns, from a legal perspective, there's still substantial legal risk to cities because these other arguments are out there. There are other arguments that I'm sure will be developed in other litigation. So unless the cities deal with the practical implications of the grants pass decision and the day-to-day homeless situations in those jurisdictions, they run the risk of substantial further litigation which, as you well know, is a drain on city resources that can be better used to try to help the unhoused population. I can answer any questions when we're done with the presentation.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Scott. So, and Christine touched on this as well, is that at the end of July, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that was instructing state agencies and encouraging local governments to prioritize the humane removal of encampments, including conducting site assessments, providing 48 hours notice or as much notice as responsible in exigent circumstances, and to provide personal property storage for up to 60 days. And so I just will call out again that the city has been and is currently already doing what the governor's order calls for to the extent possible, given our legal constraints. So switching gears and talking about the camping ordinance that's now in effect, as a reminder, with the Boyd lawsuit now dismissed, the city is able to enforce these regulations as passed by the city council earlier this year. And so the regulations include campsite size maximums, as well as establishes a number of proximity and safety buffers, including 10-foot setbacks from private property lines and public utility infrastructure, as well as 10 feet from other campsites. I will add that camping is prohibited in the city within 250 feet of schools, as well as 100 feet from any of our playgrounds. Enforcement of the regulations only will take place after individuals in violation receive notices and the opportunity to comply. And so again, I just want to clarify that it's important to note that the city maintains a standard practice whereby the city first seeks voluntary compliance and works with its nonprofit community service provider partners to provide additional notice and outreach where available, and offers assistance to affected persons, including but not limited to, again, providing tents and sleeping bags. And Mel will know this because she's had boxes of tents at her desk. So now with the camping ordinance in effect, I want to detail just a couple items of note regarding the ongoing enforcement of these regulations. And so I will add that last week we started with noticing an individual who was camping at the Menzies lot, but however, this effort's now on hold as a temporary restraining order has been filed against the city, which is blocking us from proceeding, and our legal team is working on that. And again, I will note that the Menzies lot, which for those who don't know is to the direct west of the Falkirk Cultural Center, falls within a 250-foot radius of Marin Academy. So for phase two, this is also now in the works. And so the city last week issued notices to individuals who were obstructing the Mahone Creek path, in particular those who were blocking emergency vehicle access. And so this morning, city crews and contractors were out along the path assisting individuals in cleaning up their items so they can comply with the camping ordinance. And so I have some pictures from today's effort of the before and after along the Mahone Creek path. So looking ahead, we will be noticing all other individuals in the Mahone Creek Path area encampment to comply with the camping ordinance, specifically for campsite size maximums, as well as the setbacks to other campsites and private property lines. And then following this, as we now have the ordinance in place, is that the city will engage in a regular cadence of enforcing to ensure that people are complying with the city's camping regulations. So, and kind of building off of what Scott was talking about, considering the recent grants pass decision and the administrative burden associated with the proliferation of illegal structures that are being constructed and continue to be constructed in city parks and rights of way, staff is recommending to the City Council this evening that you all adopt amendments to our camping ordinance. And so the proposed amendments include the following. First of which is providing the city greater flexibility to prohibit camping or set time, place, or manner conditions on camping on public property in light of the grants pass ruling. The second one clarifies a prohibition on occupying, constructing, and affixing structures made of building materials on public property, and to allow for temporary shelters like fabric, tents, tarps, provided that they are not affixed to public or private property except with removable stakes on unimproved ground. And then the third is adding an additional safety setback. So this would require campsites be at least 5 feet from the edge of roadway pavement to ensure safety and to prevent any obstruction of traffic. So just to note that that's where the pavement ends. It's not where the white line is, so to speak, but actually where the pavement ends. The remaining amendments seek to align the noticing protocols that the city has with those of the governor's recent executive order. So now the city will, under this amended ordinance, the city would issue a 48-hour notice to cure a violation of the camping ordinance. However, the city will require immediate removal or abatement when the encampment poses an imminent threat to life, health, safety, or infrastructure such that exigent circumstances require immediate action. And the city will now provide a 48-hour notice to remove unpermitted structures. And I will note for that one is different from our current process by which it's a much longer drawn out administrative process that can take several weeks. And again, just to I don't think we can say this enough in the course of this work is that it's the city maintains a standard practice whereby we work to seek voluntary compliance first, and we work with our nonprofit service providers to provide additional notice and outreach where available. So we go at this trying to take a trauma-informed and human-centered approach first, rather than just coming out of the gate and seeking to just notice people without any regard for them as individuals. And then the last thing that I will add with the ordinance amendments is that we just made a couple definition tweaks just to make it easier and more readable for members of the public. And so now with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mel Burnett, who's going to talk about the, actually, I'm not going to pass it over to Mel yet. I'm going to actually call up Captain Roy Leone of the San Rafael Police Department to come up and talk about repeat offenders in the police department's overall approach.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the San Rafael Police Department's enforcement strategies and approach to tackling repeat criminal offenders and other criminal activity. For repeat offenders and criminal activity, the use of data-driven insights to identify repeat offenders allows us to allocate resources more efficiently and implement targeted interventions tailored to their specific behaviors and needs. Our strategy includes increased surveillance and supervision and ensuring probation requirements are strictly met. Additionally, our SAFE team and mental health liaison, Lynn Murphy, will work closely with these individuals to provide essential resources, aiming to improve their circumstances, ideally to reduce need for further enforcement. Combating open-air drug use and criminal activity. To address open-air drug use and other crimes, we increase patrols and surveillance in high-activity areas. By deploying more officers, we aim to deter drug transactions and enhance overall community safety. Any violations of the law, either outside of a proposed sanctioned camping program or within a proposed sanctioned camping program, will be investigated and properly enforced. Partnering with organizations like Marin County Specialized Investigative Unit is key. This collaboration brings specialized expertise and resources, improving our ability to solve complex and high-profile cases. It also enhances information sharing, streamlines investigations, and boosts coordination, leading to more successful outcomes. Community engagement efforts. Building strong relationships and partnerships with local residents and business owners is crucial. Community members often observe suspicious activities and can provide vulnerable intelligence. By encouraging residents and local business owners to report drug-related activities and fostering a collaborative environment, we can gather information and refine our response strategies. Coordination with the Marin County District Attorney's Office. Regular meetings with the District Attorney's Office ensure ongoing communication and collaboration. These meetings help us discuss case progress, share insights on crime trends, and develop unified strategies for managing repeat offenders. Together, these strategies will strengthen our efforts to combat crime and enhance public safety. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Captain Leon. And with that, now I will pass it over to Mel Burnett to speak about the Encampment Resolution Fund grant as well as the sanctioned camping area. Mel.
Good evening. The City of San Rafael and County of Marin applied jointly and were awarded nearly $6 million to address the Mahone Creek Path area encampment through encampment resolution funds for the third round from the state of California. The grant application was submitted on January 31st, 2024, and at that time, there was an estimated 65 individuals residing in the overall Mahone Creek area, including along the Mahone Path, Anderson Drive from Lindaro Street to Rice Drive, as well as a previous area on Francisco Boulevard West. The grant's goal is to connect encampment residents to case management, permanent housing, rapid rehousing subsidies, and supportive services to end homelessness. The County of Marin will be contracting with a housing case management provider for 3 full-time housing-based case managers and 1 full-time outreach worker. These staff will provide services to the identified grant-eligible individuals who are residing in the areas prior to the January 31st submission date. Additionally, these funds will be used to develop and operate a sanctioned camping area within San Rafael, as well as an interim shelter program to be developed in the future with the grant expenditure timeline. The sanctioned camping area will be developed along the northern portion of the Mahone Creek Path between Lincoln Avenue and Francisco Boulevard West. The planned duration of the sanctioned site is 12 to 18 months, and the site will then be returned to its intended use after the program ends. City staff have planned for up to 47 tent sites to be set up within the sanctioned area, and those will each accommodate 1 individual per tent. The map shown on this slide is a schematic of the proposed sanctioned camping area. The white line shows existing fencing that will remain as is, and the red line shows a site perimeter that will become an 8-foot-high chain link fence. The yellow squares show tent site locations, as well as 1 security guard station that will be located at each gate on Lincoln Avenue and Francisco Boulevard West. Additional temporary assets include 6 portable restrooms for residents, that 2 of which will be ADA accessible, and there will be 6 hand washing stations, 1 portable restroom that will be designated for staff and security personnel use, office units to be used by program management staff and housing case managers, a designated pet use area and designated smoking area, storage container to hold replacement supplies, garbage dumpsters to be serviced regularly, and community meeting spaces for residents and staff. Additionally, at least 4 fire extinguishers would be placed throughout the site for fire prevention. This map shows the proposed sanctioned camping area in orange and gives a perspective of where in proximity it is to the surrounding community that the site will be located. Development of the site includes the installation of the previously mentioned 8-foot chain link fencing and new gates added to the entry points at Lincoln Avenue and Francisco Boulevard West. Electrical repairs to existing pathway lighting and increases to provide lighting around security stations, as well as adding power provided to the temporary security and office units will be added. Operational elements of the site will include security personnel to be on site 24/7, with at least 2 guards stationed at each entrance and 1 to 2 guards who will be monitoring the site internally. Staff propose contracting with Defense Block Security for these services. Program management and janitorial services will be provided on site. These staff personnel will provide direct on-site service to participants through issuing and setting up replacement equipment, acting as additional points of contact for housing case managers, assisting with essential needs of residents, and providing connection to services, even helping with filling out housing applications. Staff propose contracting with FS Global for these services. Additional regular operations include service of the portable restrooms, regular garbage pickup, and weekly shower service. Participation in the sanctioned camping area will be voluntary, and any unhoused individuals who are eligible yet not electing to participate will be permitted to camp elsewhere in the city in compliance with the Camping Ordinance 19.50. Staff have worked collaboratively with Marin County Coordinated Entry and community partners to identify individuals who have been residing in the Mahone Creek area encampment prior to the January 31st, 2024 submission date. Individuals from this identified list will be prioritized for outreach and enrollment based on the following: plaintiffs in the Boyd versus City of San Rafael lawsuit, their VI SPDAT scores, length of time residing in the Mahone Creek area encampment, and previous participation in the city's service support area. Enrolled participants in the sanctioned camping site will be required to abide by a code of conduct, including a no visitor policy. Additionally, there will be a no camping buffer area instituted along the southern portion of the Mahone Creek path. Why a sanctioned camping area? Due to the shortage of adequate shelter space in Marin County, the city proposes establishing a sanctioned camping area to provide targeted services and structure for individuals currently residing in the Mahone area encampment. The city's service support area successfully connected over 70% of participants to permanent housing. This new program aims to offer greater stability, safety, and enhanced services for participants. We believe this approach will also provide greater stability and public health and safety for the concerned community members. Public health and safety for the immediately adjacent businesses and larger community. The program will include, as mentioned, both around-the-clock security, program staff, and phone numbers for concerned community members and businesses to call. Why along the Mahone Creek path? ERF 3 requires grant funds to be used for providing alternative shelter in the general proximity of the existing unsanctioned encampment area. Local service providers have also recommended that a location within walking distance to food and services would benefit participants and minimize disruption. Additionally, the city lacks suitable public land elsewhere for the program, and a year-long search for private alternatives was unsuccessful. However, we are still committed to finding another location for a future interim shelter project to be funded by ERF. Staff are also bringing the proposed scope of work and contract for Downtown Streets Team services for the 24-25 fiscal year. Downtown Streets Team, or DST, has been working in San Rafael since July 2013 and provides employment opportunities, housing-focused case management, and supportive services to individuals experiencing homelessness. Over the fiscal year 23-24, DST removed a total of 175,000 gallons of debris from the downtown area, canal neighborhood, and encampment areas in San Rafael. In the 24-25 fiscal year, DST will operate with at least 20 team members at a time, focusing on encampment hotspots while maintaining regular cleanup efforts in the downtown, including 4th Street and the canal neighborhood. The costs associated with the establishment of the sanctioned camping area will be funded by a $1 million state appropriation provided by Senator McGuire and the County of Marin, along with approximately $4 million of the $5 million ERF 3 grant. While the county has yet to receive the ERF 3 funds, it will be able to provide the $1 million from the state appropriation in September, pending a Board of Supervisors approval. Site preparation and setup costs of the sanctioned site are estimated at $500,000, including engineering, fencing, utility repairs, and necessary assets. As shown in Table 1, the total cost for site preparation, setup, and contract services for the sanctioned camping area is $2,256,500. Staff is requesting an appropriation from the Grants Fund 283 in this amount to support the initial costs and contracts associated with the sanctioned camp in order for the city to begin this work immediately. Staff is also requesting corresponding authorization for the city manager to execute and enter into contracts for these services, as well as for the Downtown Streets Team contract as shown in Table 2. For the DST contract, the fiscal impact is $200,000. Of this, $40,000 is funded by the ERF 3 grant and $160,000 is funded by the fiscal year 24-25 general fund budget. This slide shows a high-level breakdown of ERF 3 and state appropriation funds. In total, with the sanctioned camping area, interim shelter, and additional grant-funded programs, city staff anticipate a total expense of $5,047,376. This slide shows ongoing communications and community outreach that city staff have been pursuing ongoingly. Staff will continue to post updates to the city's homelessness webpage and newsletter. These will be posted on a bi-weekly basis. The city's webpage has also been updated with comprehensive frequently asked questions and videos detailing updates on items such as the camping ordinance and homelessness response. City staff have also been in contact with the San Rafael City School District to address school concerns and guardian concerns. City staff and Defense Block security contractors also anticipate hosting regular Zoom meetings starting 2 weeks prior to the sanctioned area camp participant enrollment. This will especially provide time for surrounding businesses to address concerns and receive development updates on the sanctioned site. And contact information will be provided via QR code on signs posted on the gates outside of the sanctioned area camp and on the city's website so that people can contact staff for any concerns. Next steps. Near-term staff effort will be focused on ongoing enforcement of the camping ordinance and the development of the sanctioned camping area. Additionally, staff are working to identify a site for the creation of the interim housing solution. Second reading of the ordinance is scheduled for September 3rd, and the effective date will be 30 days thereafter. If approved, the amended camping ordinance would go into effect on October 4th, assuming no legal action that would restrain enforcement. The recommendations are to waive the reading and introduce the ordinance amending San Rafael Municipal Code Chapter 19.50, camping on public property. Staff also recommend to adopt the resolution appropriating $2,256,400 from the Grants Fund 283 to support the initial costs and contracts associated with the sanctioned camping area, and also authorizing the city manager to execute contracts in the amount of $2,002,400 for the first phase of the ERF 3 grant program. This slide shows staff contacts, as well as the city's homelessness webpage, where you can also find a link to subscribe to the housing and homelessness newsletter.
All right, and with that, we'd now like to invite County Executive Derek Johnson to come up and share a few words on our ongoing partnership with the county.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and city staff. That was an excellent presentation, and I just want to thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm here on behalf of the County of Marin. I'm still getting my sea legs here in my new role. And I would say one of my first priorities has been to connect on one important issue that I know is all important to all of us here in Marin County is housing and homelessness, and the two are inextricably linked. I spent the majority of my career, most recently down in San Luis Obispo as the city manager, and we had the unfortunate fact that we had some of the highest per capita unhoused individuals in the state of California. The situation was not too dissimilar here, what you're experiencing here in San Rafael. And I certainly recognize, having been a city manager, that it is uniquely different to have homeless encampments in an urbanized area where they're right adjacent to businesses and homes compared to the challenges that we have here at the County of Marin. They are both incredibly difficult, and one of the things that I'm very thankful of having come to Marin County, and I made a deliberate choice to come here, is that there were people that really understood that the issue of homelessness is complex. It requires a combination of compassion, and we also need order at the end of the day. And I've been following the evolution of the ordinance here that's before you tonight, and your staff has done an outstanding job of presenting that. The County of Marin, we stand to be ready and to continue to be a partner. You can see from the slide presentation tonight that there has been historical partnership, and I'm here to make sure that those commitments are made loud and clear to the city council and to all of the staff. We have a lot of important work to do in front of us, as Mr. Stefanski pointed out as part of his presentation, and as Mel presented as well. There is a lot of work to be done to transition from where we've been to where we need to go to stabilize this community, those neighborhoods, and the individuals that are suffering from homelessness. And that can't happen alone by this city. It can't happen alone by the county. You saw the list of service individuals as part of the presentation. There are fortunately a lot of people that stand ready to help out, and I want to make sure that comes through as well. We, as your city manager indicated, we have had some preliminary meetings with San Rafael to partner. They were very productive conversations. We plan on continuing those. I'm very heartened of what I saw presented tonight and the characterization. And I know my staff is eager to roll up our sleeves and continue to make meaningful progress. It's not going to happen overnight. We all wish it would, and it's going to take time. It took literally decades for us to arrive at the situation that really culminated in the pandemic and post-pandemic, and it's going to take some time to make our way out. Fortunately, we have individuals like Senator McGuire and the Board of Supervisors and this council that understands the duality of trying to be both instituting both compassion and order. And again, I'm looking forward to be a part of that team. So thank you so much for the invitation here tonight. I'm really glad and was delighted to be a part of the presentation. I'll be remaining for a part of the presentation and public comment and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Kate, with that, that concludes the staff presentation, but we are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, and prior to questions, I know that we talked to our service providers as they're also stakeholders, so I know St. Vincent de Paul is here. Is now the appropriate time to have her say a few comments at the tail end of that before we ask our questions?
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
appropriate.
Christine Paquette?
Hi, Mayor Kate, City Council, and City staff. Thank you for the invitation to speak tonight. I'm Christine Paquette, Executive Director at St. Vincent de Paul Society, Marin County. Our mission is to prevent homelessness in Marin, to end homelessness for folks. We've been doing that for almost 80 years in Marin County. So it's an honor to be here tonight and work with all of you. We really came to commend city staff. I think when we see these presentations, we see this is a tremendous amount of work and effort. It's done in a way that has been humane, carefully thought out. It's been challenging. It's difficult for all of us. But speaking for St. Vincent de Paul Society and all the people that we represent, we believe that we all want the same things, which is to really have an encampment that ends with people getting permanently housed in a safe and dignified and humane way. Our goal is that when we see all of the folks participating in this encampment, that we can add their names to the more than 700 chronically homeless people that we now have permanently housed in Marin, and they're staying permanently housed. So we just want to commend your efforts, continue to work with you one person at a time in a way that works for all of us. As Derek Johnson said, it will not be as fast as we would like. Every dollar counts. Taking one person at a time, understanding their situation, their story, and where they need to go to be safe is really important. But I do believe that we can all do that together. And our past work has proven that we can do that well and find success for everyone in the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for providing those comments. So now I'll turn to my colleagues, see if they have any questions of staff or Mr. Johnson that's in the house. Councilmember Kurtz, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. I do have a couple questions. Thank you for the very thorough, detailed report and bringing us all the way up to today. Rounding to the nearest million, probably. What do you think our overall financial commitment has been since we've started working on the homeless? So that's what, I mean, like I said, just round to the million, because I know it's high. And then the other one for right now is I'll cut two of them actually. Are we aware of any new state legislation? I'm actually looking over on the attorney side. Any new legislation that might be coming through with this latest session? And then specifically for our area, if the grant funding is not used, what happens? And then, sorry, one more. Waiting for years to be able to do this. And then in terms of our business community, we're setting this up right near the encampments have been within spot in the middle of our business community. And now we're proposing putting the encampment in the business community. And I'm just wondering in terms of our work, around supporting the business community, what is being done and what will be done.
We'll get back to
We'll
that.
go, okay, so we'll get back to the first number. In terms of new state legislation, we are late in the legislative session right now, but I do know that Senator Josh Becker down in the San Jose area is looking at drafting a bill that would require cities to plan for and develop shelter beds akin to how we handle the arena process in determining housing units. And so I know that that's one bill that's out there. I do know, and talking with my colleagues at the county, that we have been having a conversation around, that we expect in light of the grants pass ruling in this next legislative session, that the state of California may look to enact some kind of regulations to regulate camping on public property akin to what we're doing here. In terms of the business community question, prior to this item, Mel, myself, members of the San Rafael Police Department have gone out and met with all the businesses that are directly adjacent and surrounding where the sanctioned camp is going to be. And we had one-on-one conversations with them to understand their concerns with this approach, and we're able to develop that relationship with Marin Roof, as well as Kyle West Rentals, and then representatives from Sprouts. And so, are you chime in? Yeah,
Are you done?
Yeah.
Just to add to the question about the businesses, as John mentioned, there's been productive collaborative conversations with the businesses impacted there. And we will continue to stay in contact with them. I think one of the things to note, and Mel mentioned in the presentation, that there will be a buffer zone around the sanctioned camping area. So what that means is the section of the path that people are currently camping, that will be prohibited from camping. That's the section that's right against East Bay Tires and kind of most visible off of Anderson. So in order to create kind of a best practice buffer, that will be another area where we'll be looking at prohibiting camping in that time, place, and manner. So that should also, between that and then the security and the program services, keeping it a really safe environment is what we're hoping will reduce some of the impact that the businesses have been experiencing. Now, your question about the dollars is a tricky one, but I'll since you're giving me like a lot of leash on, to the nearest million. I think last year in particular, because of a lot of the legal costs we incurred, and the way we calculate this is, staff time, my office, the city attorney's office, and, the materials and contracts that we have. I think last fiscal year, it's about 1.5 million. I think that's what we put in the declaration. And so hopefully without legal challenges, we'll be in a better position to really focus our time and energy onto solving the homelessness and putting staff time and resources toward that. So I'd say it's between $1 million and $1.5 million a year.
And then your last question on the ERF funds, it's if you don't use it, you lose it. And so if we don't spend this money within the 3-year period, then we would have to return it back to the state.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy, questions?
Couple of hyper focused questions. First, in describing the contractors for the site, one of them that you listed was the Downtown Streets team, which is an awesome organization. I think that's a great thing. My question, though, is about the funding for them. If I understood you correctly, you said that $160,000 of their funding comes from the general fund. Why is that as opposed to the ERF funding?
So in looking at when we were developing the general fund budget this year, in order for us to use the funds of the ERF funds, it has to have a direct correlation to the services that are being provided. And so we felt that with Downtown Streets and their ability to help clean up the site around where the sanctioned camp is, that we would thereby be able to allocate a portion of their $200,000 contract onto ERF, but still have the general fund still cover it. And I will add that in previous years, the general fund has paid for the entirety of that contract. So with this money, we're able to defray some of those costs over to ERF.
Okay, so they're going to be doing a fraction of it. All right, next hyper-focused question. We heard about requiring emergency vehicle access along the path. will there still be emergency vehicle access along the path that goes through the sanctioned camping area?
Yes. So we are planning for the gate to provide vehicle access as well as pedestrian access. And we'll maintain at least a 12 to 13 foot minimum width throughout the site for emergency vehicle access as needed.
Okay, now shift gears for a minute to a broader question. What will be your vision for additional reports back to us, assessments on the need to pivot if necessary, and go in a different direction? I guess that would be the overall ongoing evaluation plan. What is that?
That's a great question. I think that we try to use a data-driven approach in surveying folks. So I think that the program staff that we're proposing hiring will be providing us regular data on who's getting housed, how many, what sort of services have been offered, where people are on their pathway to housing. So I would imagine a report back to the council within the first 3 or 4 months of the program, just to give an update on how things are going, how many people we're housing, provide some input that we're getting from the community, and then ongoing. As John and Mel mentioned, this isn't intended to be a long-term program. It's intended to be a stopgap, a very temporary solution to provide a safer space for people to be and have targeted services. So I would say that, we'd be updating the council and the community, like I said, about quarterly as we continue. I think the long-term vision and the ability to pivot is really important. If it's not working, then we will, for whatever reason that is, we will reevaluate. I think the strategy of using the grant funds to focus on some interim transitional housing solutions, we've not been successful at finding a site location for that, but trying to find more transitional housing solutions. As we know, the permanent supportive housing is so incredibly expensive and takes so many years to get online, that we're trying to create safer, more dignified solutions, like some sort of tiny home type village. So we've got flexibility in that grant money. We wrote it broadly enough so that if we need to flex or grow something or shrink it or shift our energies elsewhere to a different solution, then we have the ability to do that.
And do you think that you have the authority to make those changes if there's an unanticipated issue or an unexpected opportunity where something that
Absolutely.
we hadn't thought, a better idea comes along?
Absolutely. We're not required by the grant to do a very specific thing. Like I said, we've written it broadly enough so that, if an opportunity came up and a site revealed itself and we felt like it would be better to invest in that direction, both for the people and for the limited resources, then we could absolutely do that.
And if I can just add one more in terms of the flexibility, is with the security contractor and the program operator that we have lined up, they have experience in providing their services in a interim housing tiny home village setting. And so if that circumstance were to come up where we're able to pivot and go to that direction, we would have our contractors who would be, in contract, able to pivot over and help us make that transition as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lorenz Kulati.
Thank you, and thank you so much for this incredible amount of work that the city is putting together, and the partnership is amazing. I have 2 questions. One is a question request. You mentioned this is like a Mahon Path. This is like a temporary camp that is happening. We are talking about 12 to 18 months. I would like to request that we have an end date for this temporary camp, so we know exactly when we will have it, and then whether we need to reevaluate, but as something that is temporary. And I appreciate in the report, I think that you had in there like the 6 months update, but like if you have another one, 4 months, I think just I'm pretty sure that you will all keep a very close eye and see what is the progress. My question, and I don't know if this is a legal question, if someone is offered a house and they refused, what happens then? Are we still okay to allow people to camp? Because by law, right now we are talking about encampments, because if you cannot offer like a shelter or a house. So I'm just curious to see if you have.
I'm going to defer to staff because we've evaluated that question and it's an important one to consider. Every question pretty much that comes from the dais has legal implications. I see that we have the police department here to respond to that as well. So I'm going to defer to Carl.
So yes, we had a brief discussion about this. A pleasure to be able to stand before you tonight, Honorable Mayor and members of council. My name is Carl Huber. I'm the lieutenant with the police department. I have some prior experience helping set up and manage the SSA, and I have worked very closely with our mental health liaison, Lynn Murphy, who's been very adept at dealing with issues of finding people housing and working with our community partners to do so. And we know that this is not a one-size-fits-all solution, that the individuals that we are constantly trying to help in this endeavor do have specific issues, specific challenges, that sometimes housing that may fit one person doesn't exactly work for another. So we want to work with a person to try to provide them with the specific housing that they need, rather than look at them refusing to accept an offer of housing that may not be good for them, and then wind up outside of the sanctioned encampment in the position that they were before.
Okay. I just had one question before we open up for public comment. So the original amended ordinance was discussed and approved by the council because we are addressing the health and safety call issues that we were seeing in these very large encampments that were being created. What we had seen, and so my question is going to be about data, because that is why we are here. It had to do with calls for service to police and fire and to the SAFE team, which is our specialized assistance for everyone, which is our mobile mental health crisis unit. So I'm wondering if you could speak to the calls for service in the last year or so that we've had this very large encampment on the Mahone Path.
I can speak to the SAFE statistics. I'm not sure if Captain Leone or Lieutenant Huber can speak to the police calls for service.
Or to fire. I don't think we need exact numbers. We're just curious, has it been the same or more? So I'm just curious, because that was one of the reasons why the council started this conversation, was because of the health and safety calls.
The SAFE team statistics year to date are 3,100 calls for service since July of last year.
In a year,
In a year.
3,100.
Yeah, and what we do know is that a number of those calls are obviously they're dispatched out of the police department, would have been calls that police and fire would have had to have gone on. So we are the ability to redirect resources and have the appropriate mental health folks on those calls is absolutely, I know it's working. I know Chief Spiller has mentioned that it is relieving the capacity for the police department to do policing work. And I think the chief is here, Chief Roman. Do you have any context to fire calls for service around the homeless encampment? Okay, we can follow up, and it's difficult to categorize some of these calls, but we can.
The safe data
It's in the
is-
matter of
Yeah.
hundreds.
The SAFE data is important. Could you just describe for folks that might not know what the SAFE program is? Because 3,100 calls is a lot. Could you just speak to what that program is and who is responding versus police and fire?
Yeah, so it's a mobile mental health crisis unit with a van and multiple mental health outreach workers. People. What's the name of the company? People Services. That are out of Petaluma, and they do an incredibly remarkable job. They're also diverting calls to the emergency room. And so they're really kind of the frontline call. When the call comes into dispatch, they determine, is this really a safe mental health mobile crisis call? And they've been really remarkably successful. They have bilingual staff, and they've been integrated as part of the team trying to get folks into housing. As Lieutenant Huber was talking about it, that not a one-size-fits-all program. And just to kind of follow on to your question, council member, the challenge in customizing in trying to get an every individual approach to housing, it can be a real challenge. So it's hard to respond to kind of the binary question, like, what would you do if an individual refused housing if they're in the sanctioned camping area and they say, no, I don't want the housing? That might not be the right housing for them. Now, if somebody over and over and over again says nothing's going to work, then that would be a different conversation. So what we're trying to encourage is a sense of folks that are working on their path to housing, and so long as they're actively engaged on that path, they're supported in staying in the sanctioned camping area. But the code of conduct is something that we're looking at. We're talking to the Marin County Lived Experience Board about that code of conduct, and there may be an opportunity to say what working your path to housing means is that when an appropriate housing opportunity comes up for you, you're going to take it.
Thank you. I'm sure there'll be additional questions and for sure, sorry, I have an infestation of ants right for a second. We've all been experiencing that at home. Apologize. So I'm going to open up the public comment, and as the city clerk mentioned, we invite you to say your name and what part of San Rafael you live in, although you're not required to do either of that, but we do appreciate it, and you'll have 2 minutes. And please come on down.
Robbie Townsend. So I'm just going to express my disappointment in terms of all the work we did for so long. At the culmination of this, I mean, just within the period of since Friday, 2 agreements that we made have been broken. One, you got sued again and a restraining order was issued because you tried to break your agreement with Mark, break in your settlement agreement and trying to evict him from his home of the last 4 years on barely any notice. Not only that, you just showed a picture of Tennessee's campsite. We had agreements. We made agreements that he was going to have a certain amount of space for his campsite. And he was going to have his tent. His tent was 20 by 10. It fit within the parameters of the ordinance. You guys destroyed his tent this morning. I get a call. The tent is gone. That was not part of the agreement that Chris Hess made with Tennessee. And so just all of a sudden, in just the course of a few days, you unveil this sweeping proposal, and that campsite, $2.25 million for 47 people to be in a campsite. I did the math for 1 year. That's about $4,000 a month per person per month. That's like a 2-bedroom apartment to live in a tent, and not even a good tent. It's a 7 by 7 tent. Am I reading that correctly? I mean, why are taxpayers going to invest in something like that if that's how you're spending these resources that we had to get? You guys wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for the lawsuit.
Thank you for your
There wasn't
comments.
a camp for you to get that resolution fund. So
Okay,
I introduce Mark.
next, go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Mark Rivera. I live at Menzies parking lot, Falkirk Cultural Center. I've been there for quite some time now. I just want everybody to know who I am, the face behind the paperwork. I did want to make one comment on the progress that you're making over at Mahon Creek. I think that showering once a week by anyone's standard is inadequate. Most of us get showers twice a day. So I was wondering if there's isn't something that couldn't be done to perhaps up that rate some, like say maybe twice a week. I would agree to that, and I would be very appreciative. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the council.
Thank you. And we'll write down all the questions. So any questions that arise will be answered at the end of public comment.
And I was reminded to enter this document, the temporary restraining order against the city of San Rafael. I could leave that as a matter of record.
Hello, Mayor Kate and council members. Huge thanks to staff for all your work. I really appreciate it. I'm Molly Blauvelt. I live on Dubois Street in Bret Harte. I've lived there 27 years, and I am very concerned. I'm very concerned and empathetic for all the unhoused individuals, especially those who suffer from mental health or substance abuse and addiction issues. It's a huge systemic problem in our world. I'm also concerned for safety as a mother, as an individual, as a member of this, active member of this community. I no longer feel safe walking down Anderson Drive. I used to walk all the time into the city. I had to walk down Mahone Creek Pathway the other day because I was in a hurry to get from Wildcare to pick up my car. And it was very upsetting to see how much plastic trash was was in the creek and about to go in the creek. How many chairs and other crap, have been thrown over the fence. So I appreciate that going forward, there's going to be a plan for really containing and, for lack of a better word, just pops in my head, policing and providing cleanup, because that's what I keep being told, but it's not happening. But I have concerns about the numbers, how that works. What I've seen in the last 27 years is upsetting. And when I go down my street, to the right and to the left are just masses of encampments that just grow and grow and grow. And when I've reached out to you, Mayor Kate, I always appreciate how available you are. So the trash that rolls into the street, all the stuff that rolls in the street, I know it might belong to an individual, but some of it's already in an orange trash bag. So anyone who's trying to bike or drive now, I'm not even safe driving. There's also this new thing that happens. Cars stop randomly at any time of day and not at the side of the street. It's like the street is a sidewalk now for the encampments along Anderson. So I really appreciate what you have already accomplished cleaning up, because that's safety, especially for the students going to Davidson.
Thank you.
But we have so much more to do.
Thank you for
So
your
this is a
comment.
good plan, but the numbers don't add up.
Yep. We will revisit the debris.
We'll keep talking.
Yep. No, we will
Thank you.
at the end of public comment. Yes.
Hi, thank you all. My name is Katie Fleet, and I'm a parent and a resident of Gerstle Park. I took off my Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association hat, literally and figuratively. I'm speaking for myself and for my family and the community. My 6-year-old daughter goes to Parkside Children's Center. I haven't heard anyone mention Parkside Children's Center this evening and its proximity to all of the issues that we're talking about. And I think that that's symbolic, because we're not thinking about that right now. And we're also not thinking about the Davidson children whose parents aren't here tonight, because this is one of 2 days before school starts, as Mayor Kate mentioned, this week when there's no childcare. So we got word about this proposal on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, just before school started. And as communities connected to Parkside and Davidson, we have had really no opportunity to digest and understand what's happening here, and to really understand the reasoning behind what's happening, the proposal, the execution, the details. And I ask, and I've asked in writing, and I ask again, that we delay moving forward on this so we can understand the contributions or the perspectives of other community members and of children. I want to let you know that there are over 1,000 children attending Davidson Middle School. This is 47 people we're talking about in this camp, and 1,000 plus kids. At Parkside, they have 50 preschool kids who are like 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds. They have 80 to 90 older children in after-school programs and summer programs there. This is in very close proximity to this encampment. So I ask that if we're thinking about making changes to the resolution and spending, $5 or $6 million, that we really do think through it more carefully and allow people's voices to be heard who aren't here this evening. I think Governor Newsom's order goes way beyond state property and really does show a willingness to address this issue more broadly. So I think we can think bigger and do more, and also consider bigger buffers from schools than we've proposed in this particular proposal. We have 250. LA had 500. San Diego had 2 blocks, 600. There are lots of ways we can make the situation better. I just don't think rushing into it today is the way to deal with this.
Thank you for your comments and for your emails.
Hello, my name is Kevin Bruner. I'm a resident of Gerstle Park with a 6-year-old daughter who goes to Parkside, and I just want to tell a little bit about my experience in the last year. About a year ago, driving down Anderson to turn on Lindaro, there was a crazy lady screaming at the top of her lungs, who was obviously from the encampment, carrying a pistol down the road, walking next to the tennis courts. I ran the red light in a panic, called the San Rafael police, who went and found this person. Turned out it was a BB gun, but it was not. They told me it looked like a real gun. That was a year ago. Earlier on Friday, I'm walking my daughter from Gerstle Park to Parkside for daycare. And there is a 30-year-old man wearing a Little Red Riding Hood costume with no shoes, dirty, high, walking along in front of the school that I'm shielding my daughter from. Earlier that week, driving to lunch down Anderson, I travel between Anderson and the canal area pretty much every day. There's smoke coming from the corner, and we call the fire department that they're there. I appreciate that the sanctioned area with its code of ethics will make sure that people who are helpable might get some services. The collateral damage of this is the people who will not conform, who are incapable mentally of conforming, who are high, who are dangerous, are going to be scattered to the other neighborhoods. They're going to end up living in the hills above Crystal Park, where they're going to set fires. They're going to leave trash. So I appreciate the effort to try to reach the accessible people, but if housing 5 or 6 people comes at the expense of scattering the most dangerous people across the county into neighborhoods where police enforcement is going to be much more difficult and all of that, like, it's not worth it. The collateral damage is not worth it. This plan will have more negative impact than it will have positive impact. I'm compassionate. I want to help as many people as we can, but not at the expense of crazy, drug-addicted, nonconformist, antisocial people living in the hills above my house.
You could, yep, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren McCarthy, and I'm also a resident of Gerstle Park. And I live and work in the San Rafael community. You may recognize my name because I've been in email contact with a number of you about a unhoused woman who repeatedly insisted that my 6-week-old baby was hers and tried to grab her from her bassinet. I would love to say this is an isolated incident of just one person. However, these sort of negative externalities happen daily in our community. Just this Thursday, I was walking to work along, I believe it's Albert Park Drive, along Parkside, where my son will be going to preschool. And at Lindaro and Albert Park Drive, I encountered a small encampment where there was a lot of alcohol and a meth pipe. I would love to say I'm exaggerating. I have pictures I can show you. This is on the corner of a preschool and across the street from a middle school. I had to cross the street because I did not feel safe walking my usual way to work. Then that afternoon, we went to the farmer's market, and another unhoused person came up to the kids' table and tapped my son's daycare friend on the shoulder. That's all that happened, and I'm thankful for SRPD to escort that person away from the farmer's market. These are just things that we deal with living here. So I recognize and support the need to find housing and short-term housing for these individuals, but it is a reality that there is a negative externality from these communities. And the location of this short-term housing is going to continue to mean these negative externalities impact our downtown, our preschool, and our middle school. And so my family is choosing to spend time elsewhere in communities where we are not having to deal with these situations and where we feel safe letting our kids more than 10 feet away from us. So for all these reasons, I really do implore the council to consider a different location in which we're not going to be encouraging a larger community of the unhoused who do have higher rates of mental health issues and those sorts of things that are impacting our families. So thank you. And again, I am very compassionate, and I recognize that the number of unhoused that are in the room today, and I wish housing for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Jason from Gerstle Park. Okay. Although there is many, I want to touch on a couple of points of concern with the staff report and the sanction camp. In the staff report, it states that the RF3 grant that the city received from the state is going to serve 65 individuals, yet the sanction camp is for 47 tents. Talking with Lynn Murphy, she said that most of the couples want separate tents in the camp, which tells me there could be as many as 18 people who won't receive services or a chance for housing, which is exactly what the grant is designed to accomplish. The city was awarded the grant off the backs of 65 unhoused individuals, and the city needs to honor that fact and what the city represented in the grant application. I also want to talk about the residents having due process at the sanctioning camp, especially when it comes to evictions. I don't see anything in the staff report that indicates there will be due process for residents. Seeing as due process is constitutionally protected, the city must incorporate a way for residents to file a grievance if they are penalized or evicted from the camp. Security guards will more than likely play a major role in evictions, and a big concern is if the guards will have the expertise to de-escalate situations that will arise. My fear is security guards' words and actions may cause unwarranted evictions. What I want to see from the city is their commitment in keeping people from getting kicked out of the camp as much as I expect the city's commitment with getting people housed from the camp. Willy-nilly evictions will cause people to lose out on services and housing, may also cause the city to default on the grant, and will not help with reducing homelessness in Marin, or in San Rafael, excuse me. Thank you.
My name is Laurel Halverson. I grew up in Marin and went to college with Marin, and I'm a full-time employee of Downtown Streets team. I want to thank you all, thank council members for your kind words of DST to start. And I also want to thank Mel and to all those in the city departments who work sincerely and adamantly with service providers on collaborative solutions to get our neighbors housed and stable. I want to make a note for the record that as a 3-year outreach worker with Downtown Streets team, I can understand one of the highest requested and basic needs to be met is to provide potable water. Our outreach team spent an average of 10 hours a week just distributing plastic water bottles to unhoused residents in the county. I saw garbage, lighting, and security were listed as city-provided services for the Sanctioned Encampment Plan. I want to highly recommend the city also include a plan for providing potable water on site with those services. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and suggestion.
Hi, neighbors and fellow city staff. I've had numerous encounters. I'm a Bret Hart neighbor, and I can't tell you how many encounters I've had with homeless people in Sprouts, Albertson Park, our neighborhood park. I've stopped walking my dog anywhere. I'd stop down at our park because people in the early mornings were using the bathroom there, and you had no idea what they were doing in the bathroom. So then I would park at Sprouts, and I stopped going there because people were accosting me when I would park there. I could no longer walk on Francisco Boulevard because I was accosted there. It's just on and on and on. I can tell you the gentleman that spoke earlier has one of the cleanest campsites because now I park down there and I feel comfortable around that gentleman because he's clean and he's mindful. But the people on Anderson, we can no longer walk there, just like Molly said. It's so filthy and so scary to be in that neighborhood. I'm concerned, though, that what's going to happen is that you don't have enough room for these people on the creek, and it's going to be so strictly enforced that they're not going to be willing to live by these rules. So again, as that one gentleman said, they're going to end up back up on the hills. I no longer walk on the hills behind Bret Hart any longer because I've run into homeless encampments up there. Where can we go to be safe? There's nowhere left in our vicinity of our neighborhood. We can't walk to the right. We can't walk to the left. We can't walk downtown for fear of somebody accosting us along the way. So I appreciate anything that you guys can do to really think about this. How about the Civic Center land? Why not all that land out there? It's not a city of San Rafael problem. It's a county issue. So anything you can do to think outside of the box or really expand and get resolution from all the cities. I know I'm very naive. This is the first time I've been to one of these meetings. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing and thinking, and especially everyone here speaking on behalf of trying to resolve the problems. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm Stephen Bingham. I live in Terra Linda. And before I deliver very brief remarks, I just want to make a comment partly addressed to those who've expressed legitimate concerns of safety and so forth. We all need to recognize that 40, 50 years ago, this country decided to no longer publicly build housing. It's our problem. It's everyone's problem. Ronald Reagan shut down mental hospitals to open up community small houses for mentally challenged people. He never did that And this society hasn't done that. We haven't done what we have to do, and it costs billions to do it, and people have to be willing to pay the taxes to do it. And everyone who spoke should take that personally and get involved. My comment is I applaud staff for the creation of this campsite, which is sort of a Rolls-Royce type of campsite. The thing is one person, Jason, who spoke, and someone else, it's basically $4,000 a month. Now, obviously, you can't use this grant to house people in two-bedroom apartments. But what needs to happen is to bring the cost down so that it becomes a model for the whole country, and spend the rest of the money to provide services to the people who are going to live in that camp, so that we have a guarantee they're not going to be there after a year or two. And I like the fact that the grant is written in such a way that it has a lot of flexibility. One thing that's missing apparently is staff didn't really reach out to develop the plan with the community the way we did with the PAC, the police thing. That needs to happen, and I hope you will direct staff to do a much better job at reaching out to the community.
Thank you. If you could wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Lucy Hollingsworth with Legal Aid of Marin. So Legal Aid of Marin, we provide the only free legal services in eviction defense. And we are on the front lines of what we would try to be preventative. However, the last 6 months has shown us that we just have no more housing, and people are getting priced out. So we all agree that our goal is to get people housed. It's just not available. And while I really appreciate the strategy that was presented tonight, and it seems almost holistic, it is missing, I think, what is the most important strategy is anti-displacement. That evictions are up 77% since this time last year in 2023. The majority of those evictions is because people can't afford their rent. And this is seniors on fixed incomes, low income families, persons with disabilities. They are ending up in our homeless encampments. They're ending up in their cars. If now when I do an intake on a tenant, the first thing I ask them, do you have a car? I am so thankful if they do have a car. At least they're going to have something over their head. And so we really do urge that anti-displacement policies not be isolated from the discussion about ending homelessness in San Rafael. It is two sides of the same coin. As much as we create homeless encampments and more services, we are filling them back up again with newly homeless people.
Good evening, Town Council. My name is Stuart Watson. I'm a father and husband. I live in the Bret Harte neighborhood, a father of two, and been here for 13 years. The reason I came here tonight is I just want to make sure that the voice, like a couple others earlier, of parents and people who live nearby are represented. There's a lot of people that have been speaking here tonight that are members of NGOs from out of town, lawyers from elsewhere, and I just want to make sure that we remind ourselves that, you know, the council represents and supports people that live here. So I want to remind people that, you know, it's okay to want nice things for a community, and it's okay to say you can't turn a path to school into a trash-strewn favela. It's okay to say you can't build unpermitted structures on private property. I know we're talking about that tonight. And it's okay to say you can't be here if you do illegal drugs, set your lover's tent on fire, or attack your neighbor with a machete. And it's okay to enforce anti-public camping rules, and we should make it okay to make crime illegal. So I know we're talking about how to deal with the situation, but I really want to urge people to please stop the anarcho-tyranny above, below the line behavior, because it is absolutely crazy, the criminal behavior, the drug use, the prostitution that we see walking through and by this every day. And I know we're trying to address this, but like, you know, this has to stop. So as taxpayers and citizens, we demand that of you, and it shouldn't take someone like Xi Jinping coming to San Rafael like did in San Francisco. And, I really want to challenge us to have a higher bar for state capacity. Like, we should not pat ourselves on the back for removing some drug addicts from Albert Park. Like, we can do better than that. And so I want to urge you to remember that tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Colin Taylor, also from the Bret Harte neighborhood. I believe one of the more impacted communities given its proximity to the homeless encampments. I just want to start off by saying that I do appreciate all the effort that is being made after what feels like a long time of no progress. It feels really, really nice to have a plan from the city and to see some stuff being set in motion. But that being said, I want to reiterate a concern that I heard earlier from another gentleman, that the plan really concentrates on something that is volunteer based, which is all great. But I just know that there's going to be individuals who are going to refuse those services. They're going to get displaced from South Mahone Creek. Where are they going to go from there? It could be other places of the city that they're going to go and end up, causing the same issues, but in different places. So I would very much like for you guys to think about that and think about what the plans will be to address the individuals who do refuse help from volunteer situations. So thank you very much.
Hi, Shinji Sakai Egi. Thank you for your efforts working with the restrictions that you all have. I think it's important to just keep perspective that, everybody in this room, one injury, one sickness away from being unhoused, right? So this could impact us now, could impact us in the future. We just need to keep things in perspective. In my opinion, the unhoused individuals that I've seen just, in the city or even around here are dehumanized, right? You hear it tonight. I've walked down the streets and, we've seen people cross the streets and do things like that. People don't greet each other like they would other neighbors. So I think it's important to keep that in mind, that what this project is doing, in my opinion, is it's just perpetuating more of the segregation that we already have. So if somehow these individuals were able to be more integrated, I think that would do a lot more to uplifting people, right? I mean, people in this room, the prestige and so forth, you all have these great jobs, right? Perhaps because of networks and things like that. And so when you're in a situation where you have this camping situation, those same networks might not readily be available there, right? Of course, I'm maybe speaking from a utopian perspective and unlimited money and things like that, but I think it is important to humanize people and to integrate people, and so that we all can have those same access and networks that we've benefited from. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tara Evans. I am a 49-year-old resident of San Rafael and Marin County. I'm here tonight also with a different hat as a volunteer chaplain. I started working as a chaplain with the Gubbio Project in the Tenderloin in San Francisco in 2017, and it really taught me a lot of information about what I didn't know about what it's like to be unhoused, homeless, however you wish to assign that category. I think it's crucial to acknowledge the complexities that surround homelessness and the critical role that compassionate service providers play in supporting those affected, especially those that aren't necessarily co-opted by nonprofits or have to answer to the dollar that pays them, but those that volunteer in a capacity as a free agent. I think that tonight you have demonstrated that you are interested in, committed to being compassionate and using money that's been given to you to help house each person in the city of San Rafael, and also address them in the way that they need to be supported. But San Rafael's newly proposed regulations prevent non-encampment community members from entering this encampment. And this may inadvertently disrupt essential services and support systems such as care from street chaplains, legal advisors, and volunteers. Receiving compassionate care by those coming into the encampment spaces plays a vital role in addressing the multifaceted needs of people experiencing homelessness, including medical care, legal assistance, emotional and spiritual support. It's also a space where bonds are formed, friendships grow, and hope is reborn. For those facing the psychosocial vulnerabilities, consistent and compassionate care is essential for their well-being and the road to stability.
Thank you. If you could just wrap up.
I will, but
Okay.
you know, all the other people with their fear-based comments got a lot of extra time, and I'd like to finish what I'm saying too, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The new rules could significantly impact their access. And I think that's imperative to reconsider these regulations that you're voting on and to ensure that those who provide critical assistance and connections can continue to support these San Rafael residents effectively.
My name is Karen Strelly. I'm the president and CEO of the San Rafael Chamber, and I'm here to represent our business community. I've said this before, but I applaud the effort and lift that the city has invested their time and energy in. This is not easy, and I've been in San Rafael for a long time and feel like you're moving the mark to a higher level, so no pressure, but seeing that some of the results from the SSA, I think it lends an opportunity for us to be hopeful about the results that we will be able to see from this work. And as we move forward together, when considering the economic implications of this work on both small and large businesses within San Rafael, and of course with an interest of keeping economic development, business retention, cultivating and creating a vibrant community, I want to emphasize the Chamber is committed to working collaboratively with our city and partners and local businesses to achieve outcomes that benefit our entire community. I would love to extend an invitation to convene businesses and host regular meetings with your new partners, the Defense Block team. I think that's the right name. Anyone else who's participating in this work, I think it would be great to be able to have regular ongoing conversations with our business community. The Chamber is dedicated to advocating for policies that foster a strong business community and contribute to the overall well-being of San Rafael. I look forward to continuing that effort together. Again, thank you for your commitment to serve both our housed, our unhoused, and our business community and I just think we should just keep going. Let's keep doing this. Thank you.
My name is Al Viteri. I live in Gersel Park. I read your report. I liked it. Read it a few times to get it right. Very, very comprehensive. I made a few comments, I think, on via email, got responses back. It was really nice. What I wanted to say is, one, in general, I find that people have rights, but if you have rights without responsibilities, that's pretty much a formula for failure. And what I'm hearing for a lot of people is a cry for I have rights, I have rights, I have rights. But I'm going to say this again, you have responsibilities, and if you don't own up to your responsibilities, then you shouldn't have any rights. So one, I'm not sure how popular that'll be. The program you put in place is addressing one group of people who are anxious in a lot of ways to get housed, which is a commendable thing. But there's another group that seems to be a source for consternation from the public, and that's the group that doesn't want to be housed, and especially the group that are suffering from drug addiction. And if I remember correctly, the city of, which is a good example of San Francisco, has a system in place for drug court, I think they call it, where if you're a recidivist in drug taking, then you are labeled as a recidivist and sent to drug court. You're a problem to the community and should be treated as such. You should not be coddled by a bunch of, I'll stop there. You should go to drug court and try to correct your problem and get over whatever it is caused you to become a drug addict.
Good evening. My name is Mahmoud Shirazi. I'm the second time candidate for mayor of San Rafael 2024. And what we have seen in 2 hours, I have lived through it with the business that I have in downtown San Rafael for the last 30 years. This is not an easy issue to take care of it right away. These are the angry people that they have been asking authorities for the last 40 years, and nobody wanted to listen to them. And here what you get. This is not an easy thing for you to put a date on it, to put what I'm asking the council to tell me if there is any date that we can get rid of the lawsuits. I don't want to, I'm running for mayor. I get the vote. I want to come in. I just don't want to get the lawsuits. I get the money shortage. I take care of the money shortage, but I don't like to have the lawsuits in my hand. If you guys just work the lawsuits out. I know how to take care of the issue. It's a very diligent issue. I worked with these people for last 30 years in downtown San Rafael. I know what they want. And they don't want it from you because they have been asking you for a long time and you just refuse them. They want it from somebody else. And I'm coming. So you ask me to roll up my sleeve. I'm ready. I roll up my sleeve. I'm a dedicated person. I want to fix this. I love this city. I know it's a big problem, but I do have good solutions. All I'm looking basically is for enough vote so I can come in and help the community of San Rafael and put it in the right track. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, Wes White, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, part of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I'm also on the LEAD committee, which is Lived Experience Advisory Directive in Monterey County, part of the Continuum of Care for funding, like Jason Saris, and also the Political Action Chair for NAACP in Monterey County. Here today, I'm actually kind of pleased and impressed that you're actually trying to be proactive. But at the same time, what are you going to do with the remainder? The sweeps seem to be happening. You're going to wipe out half of Camp Integrity and not even mention that it's Camp Integrity. That seems like a loss. I think what people need is an address, 400 square feet in a structure, 20 feet by 20 feet of personal space for their family dynamic as well. So maybe even bigger. You're only putting 47 single people in there, so you're forgetting a lot of dynamics in that. And what's going to happen? You could reward positive behavior. If people are not, if the health and safety issues are addressed and mitigated, then you should pass them over. They should be allowed to be somewhere, especially if they're signed up in the continuum of care, because one department is receiving money. And if law enforcement is defeating the purpose of that department, then you're actually in a conflict, Civil Rights Act conflict. You need to validate people. They need to be somewhere, anywhere. Or are you trying to bury them alive? Are you hoping they will die while you're making money off of them? That $4 million seems like economic injustice because it's going in the name of people, but never directly to, and they still have no economic power because they're still living in a tent. And all this money is going to service providers who definitely feel better than you, the other people. And that just can't do. You can't be doing sweeps. You can't get rid of people. What are you going to do with the remainder? How are you going to be responsible with them and redirect positive behavior and reward positive behavior?
Okay, thank you. Not seeing anyone else, I will close the public comment. I'm just going to read off a bunch of the questions, and if I missed any. So these are in no particular order, although I tried to do them in order. There was a question about having more frequent showers. The question about, will there be a creek cleanup? There was a couple questions around Parkside and Davidson, maybe schools, both talking about outreach and probably how this amendment addresses setbacks, because there was this current amendment's 250. One of the speakers said, could it be larger? There were many questions around the development of the amendment of how this happened. So maybe just kind of a brief history of how we got here. I know you went through it in the staff report, and I know some of this has already been said, but sometimes when this is really complicated. So I want us to go back to the restating. Other aspects of the amendment, if you could talk about the time, place, and manner part, like what the original was. I realize that we didn't speak to that. The presentation didn't speak to time, place, and manner, and there were conversations about that. And we also didn't talk about what our current amendment already does. There was concerns about open space. We know up here that our amendment actually prohibits camping in open space, but that wasn't. So if we could talk a little bit more about the amendment, the current existing and what is being proposed. There was a question about evictions for folks in the sanctioned camping area, just the process and procedure around that. And did they have a recourse if that were to come befall them? There were several suggestions around the sanctioned camping area, the possibility of potable water, and is there an ability for volunteers, chaplains, legal representatives to visit? What does that look like? And then we get into, there's a question about the county property. I think Mr. Johnson had to leave, but we could speak to the county property. The timing of the lawsuits, when they'll end. Just maybe talk to lawsuits and how they land for the city over anything. The reward for positive behavior, if that has been incorporated into the program that's being designed. There's been several comments about not having housing or programs. So if staff could speak to 3301 Kerner, South Alicio, and Jonathan's Place, I think we want to provide the full story here, and that San Rafael actually has been providing that. So if you could speak to that. Legal constraints, again, a lot of things, again, very much confusion around the legal, what Newsom has said and what SCOTUS has said and what we can do here. And then the last one, going back to the county, questions around $6 million, dividing them per capita, and I don't think we don't tend to do that. So maybe instead to speak to how much case management services, and I'm sorry that Mr. Johnson left, because we do know there's a price for case management per person per year, and that's a figure that the county has given us over and over, which is in the grant. I don't know if we can pull that number out. So again, and then the last, there was a question around anti-displacement efforts, and that's something that the county is actually working on, and I do think it's worth mentioning. So there might be others. I think with that, we will have a lot more information out there, and there might be additional questions from the council after that. So, and feel free to add anything that I might have missed.
I'm gonna do a double check here on my list as well. I think we've got all of them covered. So with the first question regarding shower access and frequency. So Mr. Rivera was correct that under this sanctioned camping area, shower services will be provided once weekly. However, the city will continue to fund the current existing shower program that takes place weekly at the Ritter Center. So individuals at the sanctioned camp would be able to also take advantage of those services in addition to those that happen on specifically for the sanctioned camp. With regards to the creek cleanup, one of the aspects of the sanctioned camping area is this installation of a 8-foot fence. And so it's our hope that 8-foot fence, in addition to security services and program staff who are roving and interacting with program participants, that would also stop individuals from potentially throwing things into the creek. But also by, on the southern portion of the Mahone Creek Path, by having a ban associated with the sanctioned camp, a prohibition of camping on the southern portion of the path, that we would also limit the ability for individuals to have their items get put into the water. In terms of Parkside and Davidson schools, Mayor Cade, you're correct. So under our existing ordinance, we do not allow anyone to camp within 250 feet of a school. And so if members of the community find someone who is camping within a near proximity to Parkside or Davidson, they need to give us a call. And that we will have a member of our team go out and interact with that individual and try to get them to move along. Under our proposed ordinance, one of the things, and I'll get into the ordinance changes in a moment, but it's relevant to this piece. One of the proposed changes to this ordinance is that for people who are camping in prohibited areas, so this includes the setbacks to schools and playgrounds, but also open space, that whereas under our current regulations, we would have to notice that individual and give them 72 hours to move. Under the new amended ordinance, we would be able to require that individual to move immediately. And so there is if we wanted to go to that extent, but in most cases, we would abide by the governor's executive order and provide 48 hours instead of 72. So there's a difference in the cadence of timing that someone would have to move those locations. There was a question around offering potable water for the site. And so this was something that we have discussed internally and is a function of just available funding and timing constraints. So we do not have potable water access readily available for the sanctioned site. And so we can look at providing additional water bottles and other mechanisms to make sure that individuals who participate in the program have ready access to potable water. With regards to volunteers coming to visit, I actually will defer to, if I can get Carl Huber to come up here and just discuss what a potential approach would be for volunteers who do outreach and encampments under a sanctioned camping program with a no visitor policy. Would we be able to accommodate those individuals either in the program or in the periphery of the project site?
Yes, so with our experience with the SSA, we had several community partners that came in on a voluntary basis. Some also were service providers within the county, and they were allowed access into the SSA in order to provide those services that are necessary to help people get on a pathway to housing and or to resolve some of the issues that they may have with background. We had a legal service provider that was helping people clear up their background so that they'd be better able to get into or apply for an apartment and remove any roadblocks they might have had in order to make that happen. So our access control would be to limit the negative activities that may occur from those who are not participating in the program, but also to allow service providers to come in and provide services to those who are participating in the program.
Great. Thank you, Carl. We're collectively trying to get all the all the answers here on this. So with regards to the camping ordinance and the amendments, I'm trying to scroll here and it's not scrolling. There we go. So the ordinance amendments that are before the city council this evening are relatively minor in comparison to the amendments that the council considered earlier this year. As I had mentioned, there were a couple minor definition changes with regards to camp paraphernalia and camp facility and merging those two together. Moving on, we also just clarified what public right-of-way means as a definition. Looking at prohibited camping on certain public property. And so this is what we were talking about just a short minute ago on the prior ordinance prohibited camping in open space properties, parking garages, parking or public facilities, playgrounds, schools, public rights of way, and then certain properties in the city whereby the city council or the city manager have banned camping. So Albert Park, Boyd Park, the Falkirk Cultural Center, the Menzies Lot, etc. Where a couple changes have been made in this, the ordinances before the council this evening relating to grants pass is we removed some verbiage pertaining to that ruling. And so we took out that language to give us more flexibility to go and require individuals to immediately cease camping in prohibited areas or immediately cease where there are exigent circumstances when an individual is violating the camping, the time, place, and manner setbacks and campsite size maximums. And then the last thing that I will add that the ordinance amendments before the council this evening include that haven't been included previously is regarding illegally constructed and unpermitted structures within encampments. And so currently in the past, this was something that we enforced under the city's parks and encroachment codes. But under this new camping ordinance, we clarify that individuals who are camping on public property are not allowed to use building materials to construct any kind of structure or erect any kind of structure on the property for camping purposes. And the nuance there comes with just more flexibility around the city's ability to regulate and enforce on those structures, which we all know have been a very time-consuming effort on the part of staff. The only other changes that we have made in the ordinance for tonight that are different from the previous ordinance pertain to, again, aligning our noticing requirements from 3 business days to 48 hours. Again, that's to align ourselves with the governor's executive order. And one other I just forgot, which is the 5-foot setback from the edge of roadway pavement. That's also a new time and place restriction.
I just want to add a couple of comments on context on why these, why the setbacks and why the camp size, and there is, and maybe Rob, I don't know if you want to take this kind of blends into the legal risk and issue. And in the course of this year, and hearing from the court, there has to be enough alternative spaces where the city is not prohibiting camping in order for a regulatory framework to hold up, if you will. So what we've tried to do with this setback approach and the distances from schools, for example, 250, and the buffer around the sanctioned camping area, we have to be very mindful that we aren't in effect prohibiting camping on all of public property, because that's where, again, a really significant legal risk poses itself. So trying to map out the city and look at all these setbacks, if we go too far and say we do 1,000 feet from a school, then we end up prohibiting camping in areas that could in effect be perceived as we don't allow camping on public property at all. So it's a very difficult balance to strike on trying to right size these setbacks, the impact on the community, and having some space for people to exist and be.
I'll pick up on that and respond to a question that came about lawsuits and how to stop lawsuits and can we prevent the city from getting sued. It's a balance, as Christine's alluding to. We have the need in the community that's presented by the unhoused to be somewhere. We have the regulation that we've already established and the amendments that are being proposed tonight. And we're doing all of that in an effort to comply with the law and try to minimize the risk that we're going to get sued. And if we do get sued, to be able to go to court and demonstrate that we're in compliance with the law. The city has been getting sued for all sorts of reasons ever since I started working here 17 years ago. It's just part of being a city. And we've certainly not been immune from being sued by the unhoused community. Mr. Rivera, one of the first speakers tonight, as he alluded to, sued us again just last week. And so we're now back in court with him again. And so I would also echo something that was said by the staff in the initial report, which is that it's not our preference. We would prefer to devote the funds that are expended on defending litigation to helping people in need. And yet when the city's sued, we can't not respond. We must go to court to defend the city's position. So I feel in a way it's been an iterative process where the courts have been one of the participants in the process in continuing from both our local federal district court in San Francisco all the way up to the Supreme Court of the Grants Pass case to instruct us as to what the bounds of our regulatory authority can be. And yet, as Scott Embledge alluded to earlier this evening, the case law will continue to develop theories that are being advanced against us and other cities that are, proposing more aggressive camping bans. I believe will inevitably get sued as well, and they're going to be exposed to the kind of risks that have been discussed tonight and that Christine was alluding to. So we have the folks here. The staff's proposing the best reasonable, logical means that they have to present tonight for the community and the council's consideration, and it's all a balance. So that's the best I can provide in response to that.
We'll continue down the list here. So one of the questions was how much does the case management services cost with the county? And so those are around $600 a month per individual. And a case manager typically has a caseload of around 17 individuals that they work with at any one time.
Just to add to that, to the cost figures that were discussed, the $4,000 a month and what could we do with that money? When you look at the breakdown of the contracts, we're talking about 3 or 4 dedicated outreach workers and case managers. And the reason why there's so much money is that a custom targeted approach with fewer clients, we can get people on their path of housing faster. And so there is, labor costs is the most significant part of what we're proposing to do at the sanctioned camping area. The security is expensive and it is costly, but we feel like it's a critical and imperative component to the program. And we're proposing a vendor who has success working with this population in other jurisdictions that came well referred around that. So they will be part of the service provider, even though they are security, their approach is to become, integrated in the services that are provided on site there. So there is a large upfront cost to providing that kind of very targeted, customized support for these individuals. I also just wanted to mention there was a comment about how many people are under the grant versus how many spaces we have in the sanctioned camping area. We will and continue to provide services to all the folks that are unhoused, and some of those grant dollars will be allocated to the group of 65 that was identified. We don't expect, based on what we've heard from service providers and our own staff, that all 65 people will volunteer for one of those 46 or 47 spots, but it doesn't mean that on balance they won't be receiving services or benefit through the grant. And I'll just mention one more thing while I have the floor, and then I'll turn it back to staff to finish the question. So this one is a little out of order, but I wanted to mention the comments about like due process and also reward for positive behavior. I know Lynn Murphy was talking with the McLeod board about we put a draft code of conduct in the staff report. We intentionally labeled it draft because we wanted to hear from the community and from the council and from others about, what is the best approach for that supports the individuals in the sanctioned camping area, but also protects the rest of the community. So I think there's some opportunities to talk more about what could that look like in a process. And so we'll take that feedback back and see if we can incorporate that into the programming.
All right, and then just rounding out the list here. So one of the questions was pertaining just to affordable housing and kind of some of the city's actions to date on that. So in recent years, the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund has made contributions in excess of $3 million to support the development of Jonathan's Place, as well as the permanent supportive housing that's being constructed out at 3301 Kerner. For folks who don't know what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, when developers come into the city and they build a development, they're often assessed a fee that the city collects for the purposes of developing new affordable housing. And so when affordable housing projects come along, that's an opportunity for the city to provide this funding as a gap to help make projects pencil and get built. And so we've done $3 million in recent years for those projects. And then the last question I have here is the county property as a site. It's a really great idea. And I can't really speak to, what the future holds for us in partnering with the county and using it as a site. But when you look on a map of San Rafael as a 150-year-old city that is almost completely fully built out, large flat parking lots stick out. So we'll leave that there.
I think there also was a question about anti-displacement, and Mayor Kate, you're correct. Our team in Community and Economic Development has been working very closely with the county on some anti-displacement evaluation of the currently existing programs like mandatory mediation, just cause. And there is a big outreach effort happening right now through the end of the year around anti-displacement. And then in our own housing element programs, staff are also working on those and planning a report to the council on progress on anti-displacement measures specifically in San Rafael in the coming months.
I went through my list and I think you got every single one. And there might be, before I ask for comments from my colleagues, I'll see if there are any additional questions that emerged from public comment. Any additional questions? No? Okay, I'll go to comments. Councilmember Kurtz, go ahead.
So thank you to everyone for being here this evening. Clearly, the experiences we've heard from the neighbors, the homeless community, and the business community are real, and we need to do something. We know that. That's why we're here, and we're here today, and we're coming forward with a plan. We received this funding, and this funding was not easy to get. It took a lot to get this funding. We don't want it to go by the wayside. We also know that the right answer is not to write checks to people. I mean, that is an underlying in a lot of these conversations and comments is sort of this idea that if you just write a $4,000 check to someone, that will solve the problem. That won't solve the problem. We know that. We've worked with the service partners. We've taken a lot of feedback and lessons learned from what we did with the service support area, the SSA. And that has really what's brought us here tonight. And that SSA, I want to say it was 2019, 2020. So, and just to put some of this in perspective, as we've been working on this for the last 4 years, we're the only jurisdiction in Marin County, a city or a town, not talking to the county, with a social worker who is part of the police department, whose specific responsibility is to work with the homeless community. We're the only jurisdiction with an outreach safe team, which is a commitment for the work that we are doing. We are the only jurisdiction with a department dedicated to working on homelessness. So thank you. We are serious about this work. Thank you. And I apologize, my phone was going off and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. I have 18 years working as a volunteer within the homeless community. So this has been my passion and I am not going to give up this work until it's fixed. And that's forever. That's forever. I wish there was an easy and funded way, because I know we would have figured it out if we had that. What I learned more, and I know the professionals in the room here already know this, but what I saw with the work that we were doing with the SSA is that it takes 9 to 18 months to establish trust for somebody who is chronically homeless. And that could be as soon as you have a setback, that clock starts again. And so what seems so reasonable to many of us, just get housing. Just go go to your family. Just get off your substance abuse problems. Sure, but not for somebody who's chronically homeless and dealing and suffering. People do not choose to be homeless, but they get into a situation that is the only option. And the network and the support that we are proposing with this plan is where we need to go. One of the things I just want to share last week, because I didn't share all the items that I worked on last week because I knew I was going to bring it up here. I co-chair, but Supervisor Lucan was not at the county's homeless policy steering committee last week, so I got to chair it. And this is a group of all the service providers in the county working on homelessness. And I think 25, 30 people in the room, all working together. That did not exist. That did not exist for I'd say 4 years ago, where everyone was really moving forward in the same direction, including those with lived experience. And Jason Saris, who was here earlier and spoke, was there and actually at that time said his support for this plan. And so he did, he has worked with this community and he has gotten himself out of homelessness and has being held as an example of, and somebody who's going to go speak at a conference on his lived experience. And he knows, and that work for him personally took years. And I know people in this room worked with him. Also last week, I worked on the committee with the older adults, older adults experiencing homelessness. The grand jury just put out a report around that. And we talked about the responses to that report. And it was really focused on prevention because we know the biggest population, and Lucy's not here any longer, but the new up and coming group of homelessness are women over the age of 60 who are on fixed incomes and are one crisis away of being homeless. So we need to focus on prevention. And then also we have the Marin County Council of Mayors and Council members that have representatives from each of the jurisdictions. And lastly, unfortunately, the Bay Area Finance Housing Authority, BAFA, this was going to be on the November ballot, which the community would have been able to, it would have gone to the community for a vote to bring funding into 9 Bay Area counties to support housing and homelessness and prevention. And that was taken off the ballot because it was brought up that it was going to be sued. And they came in very, very late. That was going to be direct dollars that we would have been able to use to support us. So all this to say, there's a lot of work going on trying to work on homelessness and address homelessness. And I absolutely hear the voices and the concerns from those in the community and from the neighbors. I get it. I understand. But we need to work with data, not fear. We have to have compassion and patience, building trust, not resort to quick fixes, sweeping boulders, all that, or the threat of arrest. Putting somebody who's chronically homeless into jail for 24 hours is going to do nothing. So the plan that's being proposed tonight and the changes to our ordinances, it's a start. It's not perfect. If we came out with a perfect plan, what would that look like? It's not perfect, but it does have the flexibility to continue, revising as we need to, and listening to you and listening to those experiencing homelessness. And our staff and everyone is committed to, let's see how it goes. What we know is that when we had the SSA, it wasn't perfect by any means, but people got housed. People got housed and they're still in housing. And there were a lot of factors to that. And this plan is building in those factors with the goal to get people housed. Establishing that trust, hopefully not getting sued so we can't move forward on the work that we want to do, and getting people housed. So my commitment is to keep working to solve these problems, not move the problem away just so it's out of sight, out of mind, because it's not. It will always, it needs to be front and center. It needs to be our responsibility. And this is where we're at tonight, and I fully support moving forward with this plan.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy, would you like to make some comments?
My comments focus on what's happening right now in our streets to our community, to our residents, to our businesses. That's why I am so proud of the SAFE team, 3,100 calls that our SWAT trained officers and highly trained firefighters and paramedics are not having to handle. Professionals out there on the streets, talking to the people that need the help, connecting them with the help that is available. That's the kind of program that's going to solve this problem for our city and for our people, because people want action now and they have a right to demand it and expect us to bring that forward. That's why I'm so proud of our staff to bring forward this. with creativity and initiative and repeat initiative. Sometimes it feels like we're just throwing ourselves at a brick wall and, one judge after another is issuing these ridiculous orders. I haven't even seen the latest one. Yet we just get back up and come up with some other way. Well, okay, we can't go through it. We're going to go around. We're going to go over it. We're going to pole vault, whatever it takes. But that's what is a lot of this plan is the pole vault over the wall to try and find a way to maximize the value of those dollars that we've gotten from the government, to bring the maximum value to our people in the streets today, improve the atmosphere for our businesses, and make our residents and school children feel better about their community. That's why I'm so pleased that we have this way to move forward on bringing change to the streets right now. That's what's great about this program, and why I support it entirely. We do need to be thinking, I'm not sure that helpable is a word, but there are people who are not helpable. And we don't really have an articulated strategy for what we're going to do about those people. But right now we've got a reasonable, logical, and orderly proposal to implement for the ones that are helpable. And I want us to move forward with that, ready to pivot if somebody comes up with a better idea. Let's go do it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Duran-Scolati.
Yeah, so this is very frustrating. I've been in Bret Harte for 26 years. And when I hear like fear, it's like, there's no fear. There's like, it's our everyday, what we experience every day. Do I think this is a great plan? I don't. Do I think that is the best and we have the most talented people who have put it together? Absolutely. I really believe that this is a good pilot and really giving like one-on-one customized service, because our goal is to put everybody in houses. I mean, that is the goal, to get them out of the streets, because it's not humane to have them in the streets living like that. It is not humane to have families, kids, businesses to have to deal with this every single day. It's not. So I definitely support the plan. I think, with the amendments and the current legal situation is the best that we can do. Specifically District 1, that's where we have our 3301 Kerner supportive housing development, where we have Jonathan's Place projects. District 1 is where we are getting the bulk of the situation within San Rafael. I would love for the county, I love the cooperation with the county and everything that is happening there. I don't see a lot of cities in Marin County coming up with solutions, which I would love to see. It's very easy to live in a different city and throw money at the problem. So I have to say it would be really nice for everybody to share more. I don't know how that could happen, but one can hope or wish. So I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated. I think this is a good, plan. I really look forward to the updates and see how that's going. And yeah, it is, again, not okay sometimes to have to deal with this every day. It's not okay. So, yeah, so those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for my colleagues' comments, and I'll just build on what they've already said. First, great work by staff, and both the four individuals sitting there, but also staff throughout all the departments: Public Works, Fire, Police, Finance, Library, Rec. Everybody is all hands on decks to bring forward these new tools. And that's what we're trying to do. We have a toolbox. San Rafael has continued to think creatively, look for new tools in both a compassionate and effective way. We all agree that status quo does not work. The commentary and the input we heard tonight, so thank you all who commented this evening, as well as for the emails that I receive every single day. We heard from some unhoused folks, this goes too far. And we heard from other individuals that you're not going far enough. You need to do more. You need to have those people, which I don't like to use that term, not on our streets. So we recognize this kind of duality depending on where you are in your personal experience. that there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of complexity around this issue. It is nuanced, and having the additional lawsuit after lawsuit has really hindered the city's ability to bring in some of these new tools. We are doing that because, to quote what Derek had said, we want to have the duality of compassion and order. And the way that we do that in our society is we actually use legal means to help with the order. And the compassion is all of us working with our CBOs, our stakeholders, to meet people where they are. And I want to be 100% clear, encampments are terrible for everyone. We're all frustrated here. Like you said it really beautifully, and I just want to underscore that. They're terrible for the people that are in them. The fact that we have people living on the street in tents, the impact on the community, we've heard it tonight. We've all lived here collectively, probably hundreds of years, the four of us sitting here on the dais. And we know, okay, did that make me sound really old? Sorry. Okay. But it's real. The impact is real, and the impact has changed since COVID. I want to name that too. So I really appreciated the slide that talked about it was only over the past year. I actually wanted that slide that goes all the way back to 2013, that goes back to when we first brought Lynn Murphy on board, right? So this is a continuum of efforts, and as we try to get new tools, I'm really appreciative for the folks that have continued to email us and want to learn more. It's easy to show up in this conversation with your preconceived ideas about what should be done in the easy solution. What I appreciate are the ones that are like, this is way more complicated. We want something simple. You know what? I do too. But hey, let's sit here and have a conversation. Once you learn about these lawsuits, once you actually learn how the grants pass didn't release the city from its liabilities. We are super appreciative. I am very appreciative. And I thank every single individual who writes me and say, hey, thank you for learning the facts, because Nextdoor actually does not have the facts. So we have our homeless webpage, which has frequently asked questions. Go there, click through. If it's hard to read or navigate, do let us know, because we're trying to make it really, really robust. Subscribe to the newsletter. This link will go out tomorrow. I don't know if people will watch 2 hours of a meeting, but maybe they will if they want to learn more. We did receive emails that said, hey, we want you to wait. We don't want you to take an action tonight. I have to tell you, I am so tired of waiting to take action. We've waited a year. We had a lawsuit that was lifted 10 days ago, so we are able to move forward. So I don't want us to wait anymore. And yes, we had another lawsuit that was brought forward on Friday, but it still enables us to implement our ordinance. That is, to this point, a very small portion of the lesson. It's not addressing all of our amendments. And I'll just close by saying I was really appreciative. And for folks that don't hang out in the policy world, let me just underscore how amazing it was that the county administrator was here at our meeting. That has never happened before. Never happened before. He was here because he knows what we're facing here in San Rafael. So when I hear the partnership and the collaboration, of course, we're going to hold him to it. But you know what? I'm going to believe the guy. I'm going to believe the guy that he's going to show up for us. And when he stands in front of us and says, San Rafael can't do it alone, and that we have to have compassion and order, I literally want to jump up and raise the roof, because I've never heard that. And like Councilwoman Kurtz, I've been working on this issue with the county, looking for properties for over a decade. So I'm very, very heartened and really appreciate staff continuing to work with them. So I'm an optimistic person, so I'm going to bring that optimism and close on that. And we're going to continue. I hope what you hear as you take away this evening is that there's not one easy answer. This council, this staff, and our community is actually committed to finding compassionate and effective solutions that go forward. We want the same thing. I think we all know status quo is not okay. So we appreciate you turning out tonight. I appreciate the staff and what they put forward, and I would like the additional amendments. I have heard that just in conversation, but we need to have the official motions, both around the amendment additions that were discussed by staff more than once, as well as the allocation of the grant funding, which needs to be expended within 3 years to start to go towards a sanctioned camping area. So I will turn to Councilwoman Kurtz. Do you want to go ahead?
So I just want to confirm, so it's I, 5AI?
No.
5A1?
No, you waive. I need to say this.
Which one is, let's see, waive further reading?
Yep. Okay.
Excellent. I'd like to make a motion, waive further reading of the ordinance and refer to it by title only and introduce the ordinance.
Is there a second? A second. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Scolati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0. Madam City Clerk, could you read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Santa Fe amending Chapter 19.50 to the Santa Fe Municipal Code entitled Camping on Public Property, regulating camping on public property within the City of Santa Fe.
Thank you. Motion on the second item?
Okay, make a motion, adopt the resolution appropriating $2,256,400 from the Grants Fund 283 to support the initial costs and contracts associated with the Sanctioned Camp program and authorizing the city manager to execute contracts in the amount of $2,002,400 for the first phase of the Encampment Resolution Fund Round 3, ERF 3, grant program and other homelessness program services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Scolati.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 4-0. That concludes